we released our first commercial game, SkyShard, on Steam about 2 weeks ago. So this video is going to talk about how that went, how the release went, and also about the whole year, a lot of struggles and a lot of things that we learned, and especially things that I, as a starting game developer, was pretty naive about and had to discover. So that'll be pretty interesting. Now, if you don't know what SkyShard is, it's an asynchronous auto battler. It's a passion project of mine because I love that genre, and I wanted to give it a unique twist with the city building aspect. And then it kind of grew from there, and eventually we wanted to make it into an actual commercial game instead of just a brainchild that I had. Now, if you are more interested into like the behind the scenes, like the development process itself, the prototypes, all that sort of stuff, I have a video for the first half a year that I did that, so I would recommend you check it out. Put a lot of time into it. It paints a very good picture. Or if you want to try the game, the free demo is pretty generous. You can check it out. And I would appreciate if you wishlist the full version, or also just check it out to see what the game is that I've built. Anyway, let's get started. This video, first of all, I'm going to do a little bit of a timeline of how this game got put together. So I started development early April, and then quickly after that, I think end of April or the month after that, Regis Gilbin joined in, and he helped me shape the idea and build it to what it is today. In all sorts of different ways. I was more the technical guy that wanted to learn how to actually code and create the game. And then the public demo went live on September 1st. So that is when people got to actually play the game. And this was about 5 months later. A few weeks before this, we had a closed demo. This was just streamer friends, real life friends that got to play a bit, give their feedback, and then we could polish it up enough to actually put it live on Steam. So 1st of September, it was live on Steam, and people were free to explore what we've been building. And then the early access release, like I said, about 2 weeks ago, 25th of May, went live. Full release, there's no date for that yet. That's just going to be when we feel like the game is finished, meaning it is complete with all the features that we want, all the content we want. Although content we're probably going to keep adding over time. The overhead of adding content is very low, but especially all the artwork and all the other things that we want for it to feel like a true full game. Even though right now I think it already qualifies as a true full game, honestly. So that is kind of the development timeline of SkyShard. So some public release info that I'll be sharing. First of all, I will not be sharing the revenue numbers directly for a lot of reasons, especially for our case. I feel like it's really unfair to do so since they don't represent accurately anything. Because Steam gets a cut from it. There's also the taxes that I will have to pay and Regis, and we're from different countries, different tax brackets. We split the profits as well, and those shares are going to change. And also the initial investments that went into this are not put into perspective with this. So it's not even profit until a certain point. So I feel like sharing these numbers is not going to be useful to anyone, but I will share other numbers that you can make an educated guess of what our sale numbers are if you would want. But I feel like these numbers are probably more relevant. We went into it with 10,000 wishlists, and it's really interesting and really fun because this was on the day itself that we went into release that we hit 10,000 wishlists. The timing could not be more perfect. And our initial goal was 6,000 to 7,000 wishlists because that is what they recommend for a Steam release. Because of the Steam algorithm, if you get put into that bracket, you get more exposure. So that was our main goal, but 10K was like our moonshot goal. Was like something really nice to hit, and we actually got there, so that was good. And now the results actually from the sales is very average. We did not blow up, we did not go crazy, which I don't think any one of us expected. It's still kind of a niche genre. It's not perfect. It's the first game we've built, and the fact that it is my first game also means that this whole journey that I will lay out is from me being a complete beginner, not knowing anything, to discovering all of this, learning all of this. So that's also going to be part of this this video basically. But yeah, we also didn't underperform. It's not like we did really bad. So overall, I'm happy with the results so far. We started off with a $15 with a 20% discount for a week, regional pricing, and then it will just adjust to $15. And I think regional pricing has been a bit iffy for us because it put some euro amounts very low. So I'm not 100% sure how we're going to continue with that, or if there's like settings for it, but it's interesting to look at for sure. I think right now we're just setting at 15 euros as well and $15 because I think with regional or maybe there was some issue with it. Anyway, Steam is handling all of that. But the key takeaway is that I want to kind of message with this video is what I learned after a whole year of just working on this, basically full-time. I had the privilege of doing that for many different reasons, and I again came from like no game development background, complete beginner, learning how to code from scratch as well. So this project has been a bit messy, but a lot of things that I'll share are things that you need to experience in order to like grasp them. There are so many videos that you can watch and like tutorials, and I learned a lot about game development, but all of these things don't click until they happen to you. Like all of these things you're aware of and you know you need to do, but only once you are put through the experience and actually go about implementing these things, then you realize, oh shit, this actually has so much more impact and so many more knock-on effects than you realize. So I'll hopefully try and communicate this as well as possible with examples as well, personal examples, how I'm learning from this, that you will be able to get a bit more value out of the tips I give instead of just the general tips that you can like find in any sort of game dev tutorial book or YouTube video, even though it's kind of just what I'm doing right now. But there's like eight main topics that I want to talk about, and the first one, for example, is one that you probably heard a lot, and that is that playtesting is good, but I want to argue that it is invaluable, like to the point where if a game has no or limited playtesting, it is doomed to fail. Like that's how strong I feel about it. Playtesting has been one of the biggest like return of investments for us. It's literally the driving factor between what made this game so good and to what it is today. Playtesting is the number one thing that should be on your list to value, which also means you need to build around it. You need to not just invite people to the game and have it play it. There should be systems in place to have them communicate what is wrong effectively. All this sort of stuff you need to build around. Playtesting is way more valuable than you probably realize at first when you are building your first couple of games. It's insane. It is hands down the best way to track bugs. So one way we went about doing it is we have a public Discord. We invite everyone to go to it. In the game, we have a button to go to Discord. We have a channel with a bug report. We also have in-game bug reports. So if people do that, it also gets sent to us directly, including with game logs as well. And this is just where we got so much stuff fixed. I asked ChatGPT to look through my patch notes because I have them all in a folder, or I guess codex. And so I went through all of my patch notes. I found all the bugs that I fixed in there. And it said in total I list 236 bugs. These are only the big ones listed in the public patch notes. So this does not include the small things that people post in there. And I'm pretty sure that over 90% of those are from the Discord or things people reported. So over 200 bugs up until this point, up until the public beta, have been like user found. That is just insane. Like these are things that would likely go unnoticed for a lot of different reasons. The main reasons are that these are bugs that we as developers often cannot catch. Like not won't catch, but cannot catch because some are user errors. These are things that only happen because you are either like not having the same info or enough information compared to being someone who's behind the scenes working on the game or more familiar with the game. I'll also show some examples. So for example, this should be whole, not whole. This is a typo. But someone did not know what the interaction is between two units. For me, that's obvious because I wrote the code. I know how that works. And I didn't think people would have too many issues with that. But clearly people don't know how all of the interactions work with each other. So that is on us. We should communicate that better or find better systems or ways to have that naturally be explained instead of people having to go in Discord and ask it, because that will mean that in the future, everyone who thinks about this will have to ask it or find an answer somehow. So that is like a knowledge gap that you need to solve. Not enough clarity. So besides knowledge, there also is just the clarity of doing some stuff. For example, people did not know how to go to the multiplayer modes. That is a UI issue. That should have been more clear. And this is, I mean, maybe not the best example, but there's a lot of things that seemed obvious to me, yet they're not clear enough communicated with other people. It kind of like hangs together. Another one is the intentions are not communicated clearly, so I know what the game is meant to be, how it is meant to be played. Again, this kind of holds together, but some people, for example, weren't sure how the matchmaking worked, like why it worked like this. Why does you not tank any MMR? Why does the rating system work like this? Why do I lose points? they don't understand what the goal is of our rating system, right? Like, we iterated on it a lot, we thought about it a lot, and there's clear reasons why we put these rules into place and why these things work like they do. But that should also be obvious to players or communicated in some way, because otherwise it just leads to frustration where people don't know what your intention is, and it might seem like a bug or something that's just bad design. Of course, it can be bad design. Your intention can be bad design, so still listen to the feedback. And also, no rails and guards. Like, to some degree, you don't expect people to do something that breaks the game, right? If you know how you should work. A good example is someone bound one of their keys to the escape key. So every time they wanted to rebind it, I think it was their mouse click. Every time they wanted to rebind it in the keybinds, they would just quit out of it. They could not rebind the mouse button anymore because they put it into escape. So that is like a crazy thing that you would never think about, but that's a random user error that should be prevented and is easy to prevent as well. So you learn to put up rails and guards that normally you don't, because someone might find a way to exploit or break something. This example here is about someone accidentally like not being able to click but drag. Like, I never had issues with that. I always click on stuff. I never accidentally drag things. But a lot of people told me already that they accidentally drag something, which in this case would buy a unit instead of like inspected. So that is just something that I can probably fix and improve to maybe make dragging less likely to happen, or put another failsafe into place. So those are a lot of like specific issues that are user error and that you as a developer are likely to not catch. More specific issues as well are like hardware related. Everyone has a different PC. You can only test on your PC. So the more different platforms as well that people test on, or different hardware, or I had to learn so much about like rendering drivers and how to optimize stuff. And because of that, I implemented a compatibility mode where you just switch to a different driver or a different way to render the graphics. And that fixed a lot of issues. So because of hardware issues that people had, or with Steam Deck things not working, I was able to find solutions to that otherwise, obviously, I would not find. Difficulty measuring, this like balancing, of course. If they play a lot, they will tell you what is good, what is bad, or why some certain things are not working the way they do, and then you can just adjust it. Another one is requested features. So of course people are going to be wanting stuff, and you mainly notice if a lot of people ask the same thing, like, hey, why can I not speed up battles? And that's something that comes back every couple like days. Then maybe you should look into a way to speed up battles, or a way to make sure people realize that that's not something that you want in the game. But a lot of features will be requested, some are bad, but the good ones stand out because they get requested a lot. And then last but not least, common questions is gonna be something that you'll deal with for your whole game dev journey. These are questions that you are gonna get. For example, with our game, you can't rotate units. Right, that was a design decision that I made because I want units to be able to fit into certain patterns. If you can rotate, you have too much freedom, and the puzzling aspect is kind of gone because it becomes too easy since everything is basically a rectangle, right? And I want to also force you to position certain things in a certain way. It adds limitations. So the thing is, we still get questions like this every probably week or something. Someone in Discord asking why we cannot rotate stuff. And so the challenge there is either we should look into adding that because everyone keeps asking about it, or we should better communicate why you can't do it. So that way people in the future are not going to keep asking it, and you're not going to keep running into that same question over and over and over again. So that is a very interesting topic as well, that I think we haven't fully solved yet, because I don't know how you just cannot rotate stuff, right? So I guess it makes sense for people to ask if that would become something like in the future. But we do have a frequently asked questions thread where this is on there, I'm pretty sure. So if people would just go there, but of course not everyone is going to go there. Anyway, the second point is that you don't want to plan too much, because this was my first game. I had this big vision and this big idea in mind. I also need to put a caveat. This is only for the first phase, which is the prototyping, the testing, and the designing of the game. So I was thinking of what I want this game to look like, and I wrote it all down and I planned it out. But your process evolves so much over time. Everything that you do, how you go about tackling problems, and the gameplay experience itself, it just keeps evolving. So you will, and especially I had to rebuild and rework a lot of system and ideas. So a lot of like internal system design, but also how I want to like load in units or how I want to design them or how they even work. All of this I had to keep reworking, and the issue was that once I made a full, like I spent hours or days working on a full system, I realized it's not going to work with this new improved idea that I have. Most plans are going to fall apart. Planning is doomed to fail. Also just in life, like you cannot predict the future. Whatever is going to happen tomorrow, you have no agency over. In some degree, right? You can of course put some effort into it, but you need to always make sure that you cannot predict a meteorite is not going to fall out of the sky. Some examples is I had a whole game thesis where it was first a space game because I wanted to build a city builder, but how do you have it move around in space, right? So I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be a space game. You fly through space. That makes sense. There actually already exists a few games like that where you build a spaceship instead of like a city, right? It's just the same modular concept, I guess. But instead you were an island in space. It was really weird, this prototype. I also had a whole system design completely like tinkered out where this is how I was going to do the game structure. And I also wrote down current pitfalls. This was a good thing. I wrote down things that I think I have trouble with. This is something you should probably do. Look, like I wrote down, I don't know what the theme is yet. I don't know what the UI is going to look like. I kind of just have an idea of what the gameplay should look like. And then you build around that. So this was current pitfalls I had, but still I was like fully designing systems. An issue with that is that I had no experience with this. I was starting out. I was just theorizing and implementing it. And that's fine. Brainstorming is fine. So it is good to brainstorm and bring your ideas to life, but don't hold on to them. These should be evolving documents, dynamic documents. They should not be rule books. They should not be set in stone. I forgot to add animations here clearly, but it's fine. So you can never plan enough. It's pretty funny that I go from never plan to you can never plan enough. Again, the caveat is important. This is the second phase, execution. So I do like the stark contrast, but once you went through that whole phase, just dynamically changing until you have something that you are sure of, that is concrete, that is good, that you have tested, then you can never plan enough. And this is super important as well, because even though you cannot predict the future, you need to start building on something. And I was building on crap, like, because I mean, this is also because I was just starting out, but once you lay a fundamental, like a foundation, everything is just going to stack on top of it. And if your foundation is a bit wobbly, then everything on top is going to be 10 times as wobbly. And I had to do a full rewrite, for example, but every system that you are going to design, whether it's for your game, whether it's internal, whether it's code, whatever it is, it should be both modular and scalable. Modular meaning you need to be able to rewrite and replace it, remove it, update it. Like everything should be a separate chunk. For example, how the data is loaded in, how a unit works, how all of these things should be able to just be replaced very quickly or updated or just removed if you want to move on to it, like onto a different system. Scalability, of course. Tech depth is like the biggest thing. When I learned coding, I just want to solve problems. This game, I didn't think about scalability at all because I just wanted things to work. But now that I'm still working on it, every time I do something, I have to completely rewrite it. It's such a time sink. It is so worth it to put more initial time up front to make sure that your systems are well done, that they scale. So with the planning, I'm mainly talking about planning to make sure it goes well in the future. I'm not talking about concrete setting in stone of everything. I'm just talking about planning how everything is going to be able to work long term. So again, see yourself working on something for 10 plus years or more, and then you're going to be writing code and you're going to be building game systems that you will be happy with, that you can build on. So that is what I mean with planning and never planning. These two things are kind of go hand in hand, funnily enough, but just you need to make the clear distinction between the two phases. And here are some things that happened because I didn't do enough planning. Again, I forgot to animate this, it seems, but it is too hard right now to add translations. So we had questions already of translating the game, but it is literally just too hard to do with the current system I have. So I need to rework a bunch of stuff, which is going to be a big time sink, which at this point we don't even think is worth it until it maybe like blows up. Like it all depends on the sales and how well it does. Then I can devote more time into maybe fully rewriting this. But right now it's not worth to do a full rework to just do all of these benefits. But so translation is something you got to plan for early. The new game that we're working on, we have a clear like separate files that all the text is loaded into, so that way we can easily add translations infinitely. So having the foresight to do that and the planning is important. Same with like reworking the server, I can't easily do. Porting to different devices, I didn't think about at all. Some advanced features are really hard to add, and yeah, in practice I basically need to do a full rework to add all of this. But if you have the foresight, which usually just comes through experimentation, that's why it's important to make prototypes and many different games before doing your first big game, because then you have a bit more foresight into, okay, if I want to do translations in the future, I need to make sure I like implement this like so, and then you have a better base to build upon. Okay. Point number 4 is that game development is just not a single job. This is kind of trivial, but this is the same as when you start as a content creator. You usually are pretty naive about thinking of like, okay, I just sit in front of a camera, I play games, post videos, I stream, but then you realize that you're also a thumbnail editor. You need to learn video editing, you need to learn sound design, you need to learn how to present yourself, public speaking, you need to do research, you need to so many different jobs, script writing, game development, especially as I'm talking about solo development here, indie development. Of course, big studios, they literally split this up in all of those different jobs, right? They hire 20 people or more to have specific people for those jobs. The first one is, for example, architecture, internal system design, which is more, I like this sort of stuff, so I put a lot of time into this, but it's like coding structures, stuff like interfaces, adapters, learning how abstractions work, learning how to structure code, syntax, all of these things you need to learn, and that is not an easy thing as a beginner. Also game structures in general. So for example, the difference with software design and game design is that games have different sorts of structures that you work with that you could use in normal design as well, but they're more common. I mean, physics simulations, right? Or state machines, or asynchronous resource loading, so you don't hit frame stutters when you load in a new level, things like that. Another thing is, of course, the game engine that you're using. In my case, Godot. You need to learn how the game engine works, how to organize your files and everything, the tools that it offers, the rendering pipeline that it goes through, and how to optimize that. So that is a whole other thing that you need to separately learn. And then there's a bunch of extra stuff. This is not really structures, but like shader language, or how shaders function, servers if you have an online game, the Steam API. This could be a whole different video in itself, like how Steam works, how to upload and work with the API. It's insane. It's a lot of work. It's days of learning. Then some more random jobs like marketing, for example, learning how to manage your marketing spend, what to get out of it, all of this stuff. I really hate it. I don't like marketing. Visuals, so artists, or color design, of course, the sprites and everything like that. So you need to be an artist. Same with sound and music design. UX and UI, two different things as well. So UI design, learning how to actually make a nice menu, a nice options menu, how to make sure users are not confused. This is a real skill. This is people's job, like singular job, UI design, yet you have to kind of implement this as well into a full game. It's kind of wild. Same with just user experience, like making sure that the people, like the example I showed where someone did not know how to go to multiplayer, make sure that people know how to navigate the game very easily, quickly, not get overwhelmed, what should go in a menu, what should be visible, where should it be. There's so much stuff. Communication, this is just knowing how to communicate with like the people that are playing your game, you know, how to write the patch notes, how to get valuable feedback, stuff like that. You need to be a statistician. If you're doing especially a complex strategy game, you need to see a lot of stats. You need to learn how things scale, formulas of like how does the rating system work, stats, sales stats, anything. There's so much stats that you gotta look at. You need to be a psychologist. You need to learn behavior, people's behavior, like how do they, like, because for example, if people lose too much, they don't want to play anymore. How do you make sure that they're engaged? How do you make sure it's fun? How do people work, right? What lights up their brain? Then I also want to mention that a to-do list is not enough. I was thinking, okay, I'll just make a game. I learn these things. I just have a single to-do list. Things get crazy really, really fast. You need like proper systems to track your progress. That is not just a single to-do list. For example, I use Obsidian. That is my note-taking app. Here's a little screenshot of how I set up My to-do list, I have 3 separate to-do lists for SkyShard, and those are also split into 3 separate parts. So I have next up like important and urgent tasks that I need to do, then like more bigger tasks that are a backlog category, the finished task. Then I also have a list for my bugs, also split in 3 parts, the urgent bugs that I need to fix for next patch, like bugs that are less common but I should look into, and then of course the finished bugs. And then I also have something for balance. So you split it up into as many as you want. I currently use this structure 3-3, and that has been working pretty well for me. But it's not just keeping like multiple to-do lists and organizing your thoughts well. You also need to make sure that you have proper version control. So the most common thing is GitHub. I use GitHub to use version control. In case you're unfamiliar, just so you can reroll patches, you can see when you introduce certain code or features where an issue can be. And that way, if you break something, you can always roll back to an earlier state. Then also, I would highly recommend you do internal patch notes. Even if you don't have a public game yet or a public demo or whatever, keep patch notes even if they're internal, because that way you can so easily track what is going on at what point, when you made changes. You can kind of see how the game evolved, or when things are going into a certain direction. It's just such a lifesaver. So here you see a little database on the left of all the patch notes that I again store in Obsidian. On the right is where I'm writing them down. Get a structure into it. Make sure that you have some way to track your progress. It is so important, because especially if a game grows in scope, it might not start out like a big game. You might not need all of this, but after like half a year of work, you're gonna be thankful that you did all of this. You're gonna look back and you're gonna be happy that you have been tracking all of it and being able to follow up on it and be able to see how your changes affected maybe the current state of the game. Another thing is just recording devlogs. This is just fun. It's for YouTube content as well, in case you want to post it. But it is really good to, I sometimes just look back on this to see how far you've come or what changes made the biggest impact. Like I look at an older video and I realize, hey, this looked really bad and now suddenly it looks really good, and that's because of this and this specifically. And then you can like hone in on that. Or it's so good to have a visual trace as well of how the game's been evolving, and you can do some commentary with it. You can give some feedback, talk a bit about what you're introducing, right? So keeping just an internal simple devlog, even if you're not planning on sharing it, really important. These are other documents that I keep in my Obsidian vault. So for example, just ideas, content ideas. I have brainstorm documents. Again, these are mainly for phase 1, but they're also used in phase 2. These are evolving ideas that I have for the game, and then I test them and I go back on them and I keep writing. Then of course structures for the game, mainly the code, then the server structures. I'm mapping out tutorials on like how do people go about this, like what do we need to introduce to the people, what does the structure of that look like, how do we do this in the simplest way. Tutorials are so hard, I swear to God. Our debugging system, how I catch bugs, basically. Game thesis. And onboarding is so important. It is probably like the best I can compare this to like a YouTube video. I was also a content creator, but this is so analogous, because with a YouTube video you can have the best video in the world, nobody might click on it or watch it. Yet if you have a good title, thumbnail and intro, your views pop off. It's disproportionate. It makes no sense. But a lot of content creators will also tell you this, that most of their time is going to be spent into what does the thumbnail look like and the title. How do you hook someone to actually be invested and interested into whatever your content may be? And then a short and to the point intro, so that way when they do eventually click and are invested, they know what they're in for and they can see the quality and they want to keep watching. A game is exactly like this. So even though I'm very technical and I wanted to make a really cool in-depth strategy game with a lot of nuance, that does not sell, that is not interesting. And Regis is very good at this. I'm not that good at selling something like this, but being able to give it like very nice visuals and a very nice cohesive design is so important. And mainly also the intro, that is the tutorial. Tutorials are so hard. I feel like that could honestly be a job. Someone could be a tutorial designer, because it has to be like both communicating the whole game concept and the gameplay loop and what you are going to get out of it, and not be too complex and long. So how do you make something simple and digestible while giving people a true sense of what they're in for and teaching them the ropes without too much hand holding. Or it is really hard. We've done many iterations, many people tried it, I've seen people try it live, keep changing it, but especially for a strategy game like this, it's really difficult. But this, you should be putting so much time into this, realizing that onboarding and your first impressions are more important. Like, if these are bad, people are not going to play your game. These are more important than anything else that you put a lot of time into. Any hiccups, including like frame stutters, if you have a few frame stutters in the tutorial, people might already end. If there's any bugs there, if there's any issues, that is a killer. So truly, onboarding is something that you have to keep in mind and not just like put in there as an afterthought. If you want to like maximize people getting hooked to your game, that is, you know. The second to last thing is to reflect and change. This is also a bit more broad, but there's this quote, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. In Dutch, it's gonna be a donkey does not hit himself twice on the same stone. But basically, if you're a solo developer, you are going to constantly be getting fooled. You're constantly going to hit your head on the same stone. Or not even the same stone, just different stones. There's just a million stones. You are going to keep running into wall after wall after wall. Even, this is my first game, but I assume that after multiple games, after a successful career, you're still going to have this happen. You can still see it with AAA games, like still bring out big flops, right? That is more maybe an extreme example. It's the whole game concept. But you need to adopt a mindset that you are never going to get things right. You probably will sometimes, but you just need to be prepared that you're not going to get it right. And then the best thing you can do is just actively learn every time that you run into that wall. And this is why I've been hammering so hard onto keeping documentation through any notes app that you have to document all the journey that you're going through and the changes that you're making, because that way is the best way to like learn something. Instead of just having something happen, moving on from it, no, actually document that and figure out why you ran into an issue and implement the change. That's going to stick way more with you, and the next time you might encounter some similar issue, you're going to be able to rationalize better what the proper solution is. At least that's what I felt. I feel like there are so many things that I especially as a beginner, have learned through this process of building a game that hopefully I'm not going to be running into anymore the second game. And I can already tell we already started working on something else, that everything is just implemented so much better, going so much faster, smoother. We're still running into issues, but these are new issues that I can learn from for the next game. So always make sure that you're constantly reflecting and changing. Then a few personal examples is that we found a lot of bottlenecks and strengths during this process. So you just go into it without having like a big know-how, how long it's going to take, what's going to happen. Our main bottlenecks have clearly been polish, like getting all of the assets in place and getting the game actually to that full release state. Because the clear strengths that we have is speed when it comes to programming and just creating content. I can put out stuff pretty fast. I'm pretty efficient at that. But that often outpaces the actual, like a lot of units are just paint drawings of me because it takes a while to actually get good art, of course. So that's something valuable that we learned from this experience, and then we can take that into our next project, either get more artists, either go simpler with the art, whatever it is. And then my strengths, I can focus on them more, I suppose. Of course, new and better system designs. A lot of designs that I did were poorly executed, even though I thought they were good. But then as you learn about different ways to implement stuff, you're going to be doing that, right? And then you're going to learn what the issues are with that system and improve it again and keep iterating on that same system. So that just comes with better foresight for future games. One of those examples is wording and presentation of information, because a lot of our units do have complex designs and they do want to communicate effectively in as few words as possible without being confusing what they do. And we have done so many passes. I guess Regis has done a lot of passes on the wording of units, because I am, again, the functional brain. I just see the effect and I want to communicate that. But you need to have proper keywords. That is something that we lacked. Proper consistency between how certain things work, because like passive healing and sort of combat healing, what is the difference between that? None of this has been clear and is hard to make very clear. So that is something that I learned from the future, that if you have effects or if you have complex mechanics, always think about how you're communicating this and creating a proper rule on how these things work that are consistent. Compatibility, that is something that I definitely overlooked, but now I know how to better set up for like the Steam Deck or to port to different platforms. How Steam visibility works, that is something that I had no idea about. But now after releasing this demo and early access and everything, we kind of learned, and we also took part of Steam Next Fest, we learned a bit about the Steam backend. So these are all things that were walls that we ran into and that I now have learned from, and hopefully, because I have enough documentation on this now and I learned from these, I can implement better next time. And then it's time for the final point. Think about it. So if you optimize for one thing, what should it be? There's going to be many different things, and I've heard many different answers. I hope the answer will be satisfying, but I will, of course, share a bit about my own reasoning behind it. So one thing I thought was cool features. We have so many awesome features in our game that other games maybe don't have. I'm very proud that people can just suggest stuff and kind of just slap it in and it's there. So I really like, we could still add more features, but like, is this something that you should optimize for? Is this the main thing? Maybe it's going to be clever interactions. Is it how a lot of units interact, or is your game better in how it handles AI, like the enemy AI or things like that? Is it maybe going to be the competitive experience? Is your game going to be feeling way more competitive and have competitive integrity compared to other games? Like, what are you optimizing for? Is it the customizability? Can you just have infinite different ways to customize your little island, your heroes, whatever? When in doubt, when you don't know what to optimize for about anything, like if it's a feature that you're trying to optimize, if it's a game system, if it is whatever, just think of fun, which is kind of stupid if you think about it for a second. Optimize for fun makes sense, but it doesn't, because so often, especially as a game designer, you just get caught in the loop. The tutorial, or maybe not the tutorial, but this should be optimized for player engagement. This should be optimized for this, that. You kind of tell yourself all these stories and these complex systems on how to optimize something. But at the end of the day, whatever is just going to lead to the most fun is very likely the correct decision. So of course, this is nuanced. The caveat is that this is going to be dependent on your game audience, on the context of the people that are actually engaging with your game, what is fun to them. But just if you have your core audience in mind, this is why playtesting is important again. If you just try a bunch of different things, whatever feels the most fun, just screw metrics, whatever. If people are overall having most fun with something, very likely it's the best solution. It might not be the most balanced, it might not be the most competitive, but it might be the most enjoyable for everyone. So always keep this in mind if you're ever feeling lost. Just go based on fun. That is it. I hope this was somewhat informational. I think I rambled sometimes, but I wanted to do this a little bit of a presentation style. And maybe we'll be back with something else game dev related. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.